Okay, so here's just a little hand-drawn graphic that I put on our whiteboard, going through the parts of a story. And so there's 5 parts to a story. The first part is the introduction, in which the setting is introduced or the setting is described. It's probably the most central part of an introduction. You know, where, when, what's the mood like, things like that. Then there's your handout. This is somewhat of a repetition of the handout. It's just in more detail. Remember the handout I gave you describing the plot diagram? So part of setting is the mood. Is it science fiction? Is it fearful? Is it upbeat? You know, what's the mood of the setting? Also, the central characters are often introduced. Not all the characters, but certainly we generally meet our protagonist in the first few pages. And often the essential conflict is introduced. You know, like for instance, remember that little bit we read from the Hunger Games? We understand the essential conflict relates to the reaping, right? It's introduced in the very first paragraph. After the introduction, which can be, I don't know, like of a novel, it can be 10, 15 pages. Then we move to the rising action, which are the plot events that lead to the climax. Everything is building to a, doesn't have to be a big splashy event like Thanos, you know, wiping out 6 million people. But it can be, it's whatever all the rising action is building to a certain point in the story. And that is the climax. Number 3, the main, most exciting action that all has been building towards. Maybe, you know, it could be a wedding. It could be writing a final exam in a course. Like anything that all events have been building towards is the climax. The 4th part of the story diagram is falling action. And what is usually encompassed in this is the results from the climax. The story is winding down. Conflicts, excuse me, conflicts are resolving, right? Whenever there's, like say for instance, the example I just gave about writing the final exam, you know, the results from that writing the exam, did he fail? Did he pass? Did he cheat? Right? Like what's the results from the climax? The story is starting to wind down. The conflicts are resolving. There's been some lessons learned for the characters, right? And then the 5th part is the conclusion, which you can think of as the final scene. The conflicts are all resolved, or maybe there's a cliffhanger, right? You can certainly do a cliffhanger for your own story. Don't feel you need to resolve everything. And I just want to back out here to show you the whole thing, and just wanting to explain. I have to grab my pen here. I should have gotten a student to come help me film. So next time I will grab a student. So what I was saying is, don't feel like you need to tell the whole story. That's going to be difficult to do. Not impossible, but I think if you tried to cram it all into 750 words, your story might be a bit thin, right? Might be a bit rushed. It would feel like there was story missing, you know? So just pull out a part, you know, anywhere along your story, the build up to the most exciting part, or maybe it's just after the introduction and you're talking about some rising action. Pull that piece out and just write that, right? Just write that 750 word piece, right? Don't feel you need to tell your entire story, right? Pull out a piece and just write that. That being said, remember to do a little bit of flashback. It has to make sense, right? We have to be able to follow you. Another example I can give you is that many novels, many novels, certainly the ones that I teach, there are what are called standalone chapters. And quite often you can pull that chapter right out of the book and use it like a short story. That's very, very common. So a lot of writers write this way. They write in chunks, right? They might have a big, huge story in mind from the beginning, but they write it piece by piece at a time, right? So try that. Think of that idea, you know, your whole story, right? And just you're pulling out a piece. I can't see what I'm doing. You're pulling out a piece and just writing that, okay? And fear not, I'm going to give you some next week when we're in class together. We'll definitely take some time in class to brainstorm, so you can talk to your buddies, or talk to your neighbors about generating some story ideas. And I'll be walking around, giving you a hand, and don't expect all the brainstorming to be done by yourself without help from others and myself. Okay, so so I'm going to post this probably at the end of the day today, Tuesday, and I will also send you the link for that video on Pangea. But as I said, if you have another idea for a story, please don't feel you need to use the Pangea idea. You do not have to. And I'll have a handout for you on Monday, and I hope your personality paragraphs are going well. I've already received a couple from students, which is awesome sauce, of course. And I hope you're having fun choosing your books. Make sure you choose something that interests you, right? There's no point choosing a story that you're not going to enjoy. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.